Hey guys, welcome to my February wrap-up and March TBR. Just a couple things before we get started. I didn't read quite as many physical books as I would have liked to this month. For a while now I've had a lot of trouble sleeping and my sleep schedule has just been all whacked out. This past month I've really tried to turn my sort of daily schedule around, fix some things with it, and am getting a healthier amount of sleep, I think. I'm just trying to be healthier in general, and the drawback is I've kind of had less time to read while at home, which is really the only time I have to read my physical books. It's alright though, I'm getting adjusted and should get used to the time I have soon, and will likely be on track with my reading soon as well. I'm also just feeling a bit happier right now than I have in a while, so that's good at least. Second thing, I'm no longer going to be doing monthly wrap-ups. Instead, I'll be doing weekly wrap-ups. While physical book reading hasn't been high lately, I've been getting through a whole lot of audiobooks. I also started and have gotten through all of the Dark Tower comics that I own, and I plan on getting more of those soon, and some other graphic novel series. So each week I'd like to discuss what I read that week, instead of waiting for the end of the month, or instead of doing full book reviews for everything I read. Some of the reason I haven't been filming as much is because I just don't feel like spending the time on making a full video review for a single book. And then when the end of the month comes around, I feel very intimidated to do my monthly wrap-up because of how much I have to get through and the fact that some of it was read weeks ago at the beginning of the month, and there's just too much to talk about in monthly wrap-ups to say really much of anything meaningful, while also keeping the length of the video reasonable. So full review videos for each individual book is just a bit too much, and monthly wrap-ups are just not enough. I feel way more motivated thinking about doing weekly wrap-ups, and I can get into a bit more detail for each book that I read, actual mini reviews, talk about all the books I read for equal amounts of time, and still end up with a video that isn't too long. So that's that. Anyway, the first physical book I finished this month was The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I've released a full series review on these books, which you should really go watch because I put a lot of effort into it, and this one was just amazing. Amazing end to an amazing series. I can't imagine a more perfect ending. And since we're on the subject, I also read the first 4 Dark Tower graphic novels: Gunslinger Born, Long Road Home, Treachery, and Fall of Gilead. I wasn't expecting to really love these. I was expecting these to be sort of nice little revisiting of everything that happens in the books, with pictures, basically. The first one kept up this expectation. It's basically a sort of fast-paced recap of what we learned about the main character Roland's past in the first and fourth books of the main series. But then the next 3 have all been about things within Roland's past that were really only ever hinted at in the books, and they're awesome. Seriously, some of the stuff we kind of get the idea of what happened, the outcome of certain things within the series itself, but then these expand on those things that happened and really shows how everything played out. I can't wait to get the rest that are out so far. I have to say though, do not read these unless you've read all the way through at least the 4th book, Wizard and Glass. This will spoil all of Wizard and Glass for you, which would be a seriously huge shame. So get all the way through the first 4 books, then pick these up if you want to. Then I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. What I wrote on my Goodreads when I finished this book is really the best thing I can say. I felt that this could have been a bit more than it was, could have said a bit more than it did, but overall I really liked it. Basically it's about a man who visits the place he grew up, and when he gets there he starts to piece together this memory of something that happened to him in his childhood, something that until now he's forgotten. It really excels at showing what it means to be a kid, what it means to be an adult, going from being a kid to an adult and stuff like that. It was a really quick read, which was nice, but at the same time it could have used a bit more. Then I read Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut. The other 2 books I read by Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five and Cat's Cradle. I really enjoyed those basically right away and really got into them. This one took me a while. For that I gave it a lower rating. It seems at first to be all over the place and really weird and without purpose, but that actually all changed for me around the 215-page mark. It starts to introduce certain ideas and things that really help to explain why it is the way it is, why it's written the way it's written, and really informs how to feel about the whole book. Overall, I liked it, but it took me a while to feel that way. Those are all the physical books I read this month. I started Dead House Gates, 2nd book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series by Stephen Erickson, and The Mirror Empire by Cameron Hurley. I'm enjoying both of them, but haven't finished either of them yet. But I did get through several audiobooks, so strap in. We're not done yet. First audiobook that I finished was Deepness in the Sky by Werner Vinge. This is the 2nd book in the Zones of Thought series, though it takes place like way before the first book, like thousands of years, and has almost nothing to do with the first book. Same galaxy, same rules. One similar character that I won't talk about just in case it's a spoiler or something, but a very different story. This one surrounds these two groups of humans. One is an interstellar trading organization, and the other is a group of people called the Emergents, a part of this oppressive civilization that's only recently recovered from a dark age. And the two groups discover a planet that orbits a star called the on-off star. This star becomes dormant in a cycle every 200 years and then comes back on for a few decades of brightness before slowly fading out again. The inhabitants of the planet hibernate when the star goes off, and the inhabitants of this planet are basically spiders. Now, I hate spiders as much as the next sane person, but like the basically telepathic packs of dogs of the first book, these spider creatures are people. Well, not people, you know what I mean. They're characters, they have personalities, a society, a language, things they care for and want and need. The two human groups have an immediate conflict when they arrive at this planet, which lasts for decades, while they must simultaneously watch the spider society and wait for it to become technologically advanced enough for the humans to introduce themselves to the spiders. And the spiders are almost there. This book is just great. I loved it as much as I love the first. Great characters, really imaginative, a lot of fun, and like the first one, this one really knows how to capture the vastness of space while also sort of celebrating the importance of a single moment or person or relationship or civilization. It's awesome, and the audiobook was just a lot of fun to listen to. And then I just really wanted more space, so I listened to The Martian by Andy Weir. This book was incredible. I loved everything about it. I basically listened to it in one sitting. I just couldn't stop. Mark Watney ends up stuck on Mars and he must find a way to survive. We follow his journey and we follow some people at NASA back on Earth that must deal with the possibility that he's either dead or that he's alive and they can't help him. Or can they? I just love the absolute humanity of this book. I have the personal belief that all human life has worth, that humans are amazing creatures, and we do bad things, sure, plenty, but I believe at the core of our species is something beautiful and amazing, and I think this book really celebrates the humanity of both Mark and all those still on Earth, specifically everyone except Mark. There's no silly antagonist or something. It's just a single human being trapped completely alone on Mars while the whole of Earth supports him and does whatever it possibly can to help him. I wrote on Goodreads that that's not just awesome, it's beautiful, and it really is. And also the audiobook, listen to this book if you can. It's perfectly narrated. Then I finished The Heir of Novron by Michael J. Sullivan, a bind-up of the last two books in the Aurelia Revelation series. This was just an amazing end to a really good series. These books have been built up in layers. The characters, the plot, the world, everything built up piece by piece, with each book adding something to the overall story. I really liked both of the books in this bind-up and have to say, definitely make sure to keep reading this series and get to these two books, this last bind-up. The first few books are fun, but there's nothing particularly special about them. They get better and better as you go along. I listened to all of them, and then the narrator really helped me connect to everything. He's great, and I really like the ending. I'm glad the people I buddy read this with will also be starting the Aurelia Chronicles series soon. I also listened to The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherine M. Valente. This was a nice, quick read, quick listen, whatever, narrated by Catherine M. Valente herself. Fairy tale-ish, very imaginative, such beautiful writing. She really knows how to create these great places and people and creatures and situations. It's really playful and had a lot of really nice things to say, I think, and I really liked it. Then I listened to The Magician King by Lev Grossman, the second book in this trilogy. If you saw last month's wrap-up, you'll know that I had a lot of problems with the first book, The Magicians. This book, however, was so much better. The story was way more focused, way more interesting, the plot was exciting, and I actually felt invested in what was happening. I actually really cared about all the characters because they actually became characters for me. This one, I mean, still has its problems and can for sure be disturbing at times, but was so much better than the first. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in the last book. The last thing I listened to this month was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This was also really good. The apocalypse is brought on by a flu that kills basically everybody. We then follow the world sort of putting itself back together, kind of, but in like small pieces within small groups of people. We follow a group called the Traveling Symphony. It's basically a bunch of theater performers and an orchestra. They travel together, perform together for the various like small towns of people that are being built. We also follow this group of people who live their lives in the airport. We also follow this character in the past who's actually dead before the flu even hits. We follow him before he died. Almost every character we follow in the post-flu world is connected to this character we follow in the past in some way, which is really interesting. I think this book is just like really successful, great characters, an interesting structure for the narrative, and a few different themes and ideas that I thought were really nice and pretty important. So that's everything I got through in February. As for March, I'll be finishing Dead House Gates and Mirror Empire first, and then I'll be reading Memories of Ice, the third book in the Malazan series, Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut, and I had hoped to get to the Ill-Earth War by Stephen R. Donaldson and Great Expectations by Charles Dickens in February, but I couldn't, so I'll be reading them this month. The only audiobook that I'm sure I'm going to be reading is The Magician's Land by Lev Grossman, the last book in that trilogy. I'm sure I'll be listening to plenty of other audiobooks. I may read some graphic novels, and I may get into some other books this month, but who knows, we'll see. Either way, I'll see you next weekend with my first weekly wrap-up for March. If you read anything that I talked about in this video, feel free to let me know what you thought, your opinion, anything. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.